Chris, my man,
What's up, brother?
I appreciate you a lot.
Appreciate you
for coming
too.
out all the way out here.
Such a long trek from Ireland.
It is. You're far away from home, aren't you?
That's true.
I want to start out with, because we're working with a lot of men that aspire to become a high performing individual.
Mm-hmm.
They look towards that. So in your definition, when I say a high performing man, what does that mean to you?
Okay. I'm gonna come at this a different angle. So you asked high performing man.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of people nowadays are trying to become high performing and they're not focusing on being a man.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a high performing man, well then you need to know what a man is and you need to know what a man stands for. And there's an element of masculinity, this could go deep, that I think is lacking in our society. And I think our society is navigating people, unfortunately, away from masculinity and calling it toxic. And I don't think you can be a high-performing man without defining what a man is, knowing what a man stands for. I think that's first and foremost. And then high-performing depends on what avenue you want to go.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there and we can go as deep or as not deep as you want.
Yeah, well, it's kind of just a very, beginning to the conversation. So we're setting the standards for the conversation now. Just in, obviously in rough terms, what would you say classified as one? There is banging on all cylinders. He's got the health, he's got the financial, he's got the relationship, he's got faith, whatever.
Yep.
What would you say is kind of like
the goal?
Yep, the aspects like.
So I would say, put it this way, if I could go back in time and have a conversation with myself, 20, 21, 22, I would say that making $1 million is a lot easier than you think.
Yeah.
I would say finding yourself is a lot harder than, for most people. I think we struggle to. Self-development is big, and I think a lot of people try and flip to I want to make money before you kind of figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Dating, well, it depends where you are. But
maybe we're not the right one for that.
Yeah, maybe that could get us in trouble. For me, let's say, what are my goals? So my goals are one day to have an amazing, beautiful family that are healthy.
Yeah.
Have enough money and time to give them anything that they need, but not spoil them to the point where they don't appreciate me, my love, or the money.
Yeah.
To be healthy, to be fit. But I think there's, with a lot of our friends, that there's a very good synergy between all of those.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think, that focus on one of those have, let's say, it's an overlapping like health element, and they're making good money, and they're generally decent people. I think if you're in the right circles, you kind of navigate that pretty well.
Yeah.
What about you? Well, how about this? This is a good one. So if I said that you could be successful in relationships, however you want to define that, successful financially, successful physically, and successful spiritually, but you have to choose two, what would you choose?
Relationship, financially, health, and then spiritually?
Yeah.
Health, for sure. Wow.
It's good, right?
I would, to be honest, and it's a funny one, because I feel like, as weird as it sounds, the relationship aspect of my life is probably the one that I'm lacking the most, because I'm too focused on
the others.
The others.
Is that intentional?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
But it's also habitual, so it's actually a little bit dangerous, because you're you've been doing it for so many years that you kind of like you learn to live without it almost.
In Bali, at least.
Kind of, yeah. It's still like you've still got a relationship,
Yeah, of course. Okay, so what's the most important? So health and wealth for you are where you're probably spending your focus. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I would be lying if I didn't say that those have been mine for most of my life.
Yeah.
Because I believe, rightly or wrongly, that with those will come better choice for relationships down the line. And fortunately, as men, we have the ability to delay that choice time-wise.
Yeah.
I honestly, this is a good question. A good point is I spoke to Sam, who you know or have met or have seen on the calls, one of our coaches.
Yeah.
So Sam is a dad. He's about to have his second kid. And I said, he knows me quite well. And I said, like, I'm 34. So I said, listen, he had a kid when he was in his 20s, and now I think he's maybe approaching 40, and he's about to have a second kid. And I said, you knowing me, do you think that I would be better off having a kid now at 38, at 40, at 42, or 44? And him knowing me, he said, well, the way I look at it, if I could go back in time, looking at you, you are more stable, more mindful, you'll have more money, you'll probably be in better shape because you'll be, let's say all the business stuff will be sorted, I'll be able to spend more time. He said, like, you're probably going to be better off being a dad in your early 40s rather than your 30s. Now, everyone's in a different situation, I understand that, but him knowing me, so I think my relationship bucket will
come,
but because of wealth and health and those things, because I can't imagine if I had a daughter, I wouldn't be encouraging her to date a man who's unhealthy or unsuccessful.
Yeah, I agree.
And the spiritual thing, I'm navigating that.
Yeah, I think that is probably
spiritual or religion.
What I say?
How would you classify that? Well, both, I suppose. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
For someone who's religious, that's spirituality.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
But spirituality, yes, I think spirituality is probably that's the icing on the cake. There's probably like when you get there and you find that, you're like, that was everything.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah.
What would you say? Because obviously, I know a little bit about your backstory and that sort of thing. You grew up with a single mom.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
And obviously, you went through some rough times, like we all are doing. Growing up. What would you say, in a nutshell, is the main thing you learned from that time, and what are the limiting beliefs that you developed there, that you're now looking at and be like, why?
Yeah. So just in 30 seconds, I grew up. My mum is disabled, single parent. She had 4 boys, and I was the eldest.
Right.
She was in a very physically abusive relationship for a decade after my father with her next partner. Bear in mind, she's already disabled in a wheelchair.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So she said she's an autoimmune disease, and she's been in and out of a wheelchair for most of her life. And then she was diagnosed with cancer, which is why I navigated into breast cancer research.
Yeah.
So my whole childhood, and I was 9 years older because I was the only parent between my mum and my dad.
Yeah.
So 9 years pass, and then my mum has twins with this man she's in a very abusive relationship with. She's already in and out of a wheelchair, let alone being almost kicked to death multiple times.
Yeah.
And I'm experiencing this as a child, and I'm sure there's definitely trauma that has happened that could be seen as a negative.
Yeah.
And I would say people that are close or in relationships, it's very difficult for them to break me down in a good way. I mean, to like get close, because I was so used to shutting off externally and to holding my emotions. The flip side of that is, like, and it sounds so bad, like for my mum, I would never want her to go through what she went through again. But for me, I'm so glad. And I'm not just saying that because it's the cards have been dealt. I learned from a very young age how not to treat a woman. I learned from a very young age what sort of family dynamic household I never want to have.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk about the benefits maybe another time, but the question was what limiting beliefs came from that. And I would say, obviously, to give you an example, from the age of 7 to 14, we used to get our Christmas dinner delivered by a local charity because my mum was disabled. This guy had left, and my mum's in a wheelchair with 4 boys. She has disability allowance, which in euros was 94 euros a week to feed her and 4 boys.
Wow.
So she was just going in more and more debt and more and more debt, and people knocking on the door, like trying to take the house off us for my whole childhood. So one thing I would say is that maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way, when it came to money, I never valued it. And that was really good because like I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in stocks because I'm like, I know what it's like to have no money. So I don't mind. But that can be a negative too, because I wouldn't say I'm careless with money, but there have been times where maybe I don't hold on to money enough. For example, for the first 3 years, up until recently, I was in Dubai, I wouldn't keep more than £1,000 in my bank account. And that's not an exaggeration. So I would spend everything on an Amex for business, everything, like business class flights, everything, knowing that X amount is coming in, would pay off the Amex. Anything that's left, minus 1,000, would go into stocks, crypto, house, investments. And that's been really, really good, but it's caused me to live on an edge of scarcity.
Yeah.
Until recently, you've probably seen the difference. Even since you've known me, I'm out, I'm driving around, going to beach clubs, I'm enjoying my life now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, the reason that was the case is I was terrified because I spent my whole life without money. It made me work.
Yeah.
I was terrified that I would wake up in a multi-million-dollar apartment and go, I don't need to work anymore. I was actually so afraid of having money because I thought I'd become complacent. So I would say that actually hindered me in a way because it stopped me from enjoying the life that I've created. Yeah. But it's tough to find a balance sometimes, I think.
Yeah. So the relationship with money, and then obviously what you went from living at home and then you went into your PhD, or what happened there?
So I basically said that there's only 2 ways that I'm going to get my mum out of this financial situation. Yeah. So I was 9 years older than my next brother. So I remember turning around to my mum when I was like 9, 10, and I was like, I looked her in the face and I said, I will get you out of here no matter what it is, no matter what it takes. Yeah. And I knew that there were 2 routes. Either I was going to play professional sport and I was going to make money, or I was going to become a doctor. Yeah. And I got a scholarship to almost every institute I went to, secondary school, university. I actually got a sports scholarship to university, and I was playing rugby at a pretty high level, semi-professional, and I had to make a decision. Am I going to follow my PhD and or do sport? My mum was diagnosed with breast cancer while I was doing my undergrad. So I then decided to do a master's in breast because that to me felt like just a calling. And then I went from there to London to do a PhD in leukemia. While I was there, I would say by chance, ended up on the cover of various magazines, and then the online fitness business took off. So I was then straight into like, okay, I can now afford to look after my mum, fucking hell. Yeah. So I was working 14 hours a day in a lab, blood samples from leukemic patients, DMing for, my commute was like 2 hours each way. So 4 hours a day, I was like growing my Instagram, DMing, selling in the DMs. And it just kind of went from there. Yeah. And I would say that the ability to make money from our phone is something that most people don't realize.
You almost forget, you know what I mean? Like that's the world we live in today. Like that's how we communicate and do everything.
I don't mean to sound like rude or patronizing to anyone watching this, but if you're struggling to make money in this day and age, you're just not looking at the world right. Yeah. Because it's really not difficult. Like there's so many things you can do to make money right now.
Yeah. So you went to London and that. Yeah. And then how did you start the fitness? Were you already training, or like what happened there?
Yeah, so I've been training my whole life. Obviously my thought was I'm going to be a professional sports player. Yeah. So I was always the smallest kid on the team. I was one of the quickest, but I was always quite small. So I started lifting weights. And as I moved to London, I had just set up my Instagram account. This is 2011, 2012, before most people were using IG. Yeah. And I knew nobody. Yeah. And I thought, okay, I'm going to join a gym because that's something for me to do in the evening after work. And I just started training, and I was documenting on Instagram. And I was lucky. I got on there before anyone else. I got to maybe like 80,000 followers organically at the time. I got sponsored by a few supplement companies along the way. I did a few photo shoots before anyone was doing any of this stuff. So I did get lucky. And then I just started doing shout outs really early.
Right.
So I went from like 70,000 followers, 80,000 followers to like over 250,000. Yeah. So I would, as I was doing my PhD and I was in okay shape, I was doing some photo shoots, people were kind of like, okay, well, this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. He seems smart, but he's also in decent shape. Yeah. And I think I just got lucky and I did it at that time. But I was introduced to someone that a lot of your listeners may know. His name's Ross Dickerson, or Dickerson Ross on Instagram. Okay. He's a big social media influencer, but we used to train in the same gym, and he once said, hey, listen, like I'm doing this shout out thing. So at this point, I just started online coaching because that's kind of the way things were going while I was doing my PhD on the side. And I would sell like $100 program, and I would give 50 to I was 110. I would give 50 to Wade. He was my first coach back in 2015, 16. He would get 50%. It's a lot of looking back on it now. He would get 50. 10 would go to PayPal. So 50 left over, say 110 a month. Out of the 50 that's left over, 30 would go into tomorrow's shout out, and 20 would be for me to live off every sale. And I would try and make 2 or 3 sales a day and like scale it that way. So I was investing all of my percentages into living and growing the page, and it just went from there. And I grew to 6 figures within the first year. Bear in mind, I had 4 hours every day where I'm on a train or a bus in London. So I'm just DMing. And I'm doing shout outs. People are flooding into my inbox, and I've got 4 hours every day where I'm like, based on where I grew up, I'm like, this bit of metal, this thing that we call a phone can make me thousands of pounds. Like, this is crazy.
Was that your aha? Like, wow.
Absolutely. Like, to think that I could choose to make money by opening my phone was a realization that I'm like, wow, like this is a money machine.
Were you always like entrepreneurial? Because, I think hearing your mom's story and that sort of thing, I assume there was a lot of like just desperation and pain from I'm not going to let her down, or I'm not going to go back. Yeah,
it was pain.
So was that your driver there in the London time?
Absolutely. Like for me, so my first entrepreneurial journey was when we actually had chickens and had hens. And we used to always struggle for money, but we had hens, and my mum loved the hens. And my mum would make like creme brulee like every other day because we just had an abundance of eggs. And I came up with this idea that I was going to sell the eggs to the local hotel and like make a bit. It wasn't that much money, but I was always kind of like trying to find ways to like, how can I get my mum out of this situation? I just knew that I thought that if my mum had more money, that she could choose who she wanted to be with and wouldn't have to be with this guy who's kicking her to death all the time. And I just became obsessed, but not for the money's sake. I actually think this is really important. I don't think I've communicated it like this before. Money for me. So when people are making money now, why do they want to make money? Some people want the status. Some people want to buy things. Some people want freedom. Some people want to... Charlie's a good example. Charlie wants money so he can solve bigger problems so that he ascends. Really, really clever. Some people want money so they can buy loads of nice things. Some people, I want money so I have freedom. From a very young age, I associated money with freedom, so my mum could be free. Because if my mum had money, she would be free.
She had choices,
She had choices. So for me, money and being obsessed with money was my search for freedom. And it literally became like, not to buy anything, not to invest or anything. It was like, this is something that can literally buy us freedom. And I think I've taken that through my whole life, that perspective. Because even now, to give an example, I speak to you about this a lot, is if you have let's say your business is making 50, 60K a month. Okay, you have 2 options. You have a business that makes 50, 60K a month and you take a daily huddle with your team, or you make 120, double, but you take calls every day. Now, some of you will say 120, I'll do it. Some of you will go, no, I'll do the other one. But it's not an easy answer. And I would say now, based on my life, I would prefer 50, 60K with decent profit, and I can just live my life for a while. If I want to buy a house or a Lambo or something else, I go, okay, I'm going to grind for a year or 2, but I want the choice. And that was instilled in me because of the search for freedom, I think, rather than the search for status or exuberance or... I think that's important. I never probably articulated that way before.
I think a lot of people, they have some sort of pain. You know what I mean? That kind of like drives them. But I agree. It's freedom. But then, if you then break down freedom, what does that mean? You know what I mean? What does that mean for people? Because I think that means a lot of different things. So
true. I mean, like for what's interesting is freedom for everyone is different. So like one thing that I try and I said this. I try and say this every day. If not if today was my last day, how would I live it? But it's similar. I would go, if everything that I did today was not to make money, what would I do? interesting question. What you would do, what I would do, maybe similar, but other people would do something else. And I think if you can string...
What would you do?
What I do right now, I think. Yeah, honestly. Yeah. Like, honestly, because I'm in a situation where, and I don't mean like I've got like hundreds of millions or tens of millions, but I have enough that I won't need any more money until I have children. Yeah. And if I've got daughters, I'll definitely need more money. But right now, I have more than enough money for me to do most of the things I want to do. So
but what about the thing? What about the thing you do right now? Because I do understand what you're doing, but it's like there's something in there that gets you. It's the freedom that you can think. You don't have to do like. I see what you do, like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep. So an example would be, like, to give you an example is, one of the businesses that one of my businesses. Our goal is to get to $250,000 a month, and we've got two options. I could get to $250,000 a month next month if I took calls. Yeah. But I don't want to sacrifice my freedom to do that. So my goal right now is to build the team and train the team so the system can run without me, with the exception of an hour of calls a day. And maybe our calls, an example, would be an exception. Maybe a group call on a Wednesday is an exception. But other than that, my goal is to take less than an hour of Zoom calls every day, which is liaising with the team. And that call I took in the roller on the way here, just listening in to the sales team. And the rest of my day is high-level problem solving or learning. And still learning every day. So I'll go to the gym and I'll network and I'll just I'll listen to audiobooks, and I try and be intentional with my problem solving. So let's say, even if it was month per month, how can I solve this problem? And all I try and do every day is, how would I explain it? You've done an escape room before?
Yeah.
Bro, the best escape rooms I've ever been to are in Bali, by the way. I'll send you the link, bro. Honestly, it's Pandora Experience.
Okay, yeah.
It is fucking amazing, bro. Like, this is...
You need a date night for that, yeah. That's
so good, bro. Yeah. So good. I'll send you the link. I consider going back to Bali just to do them again. They're that good. So, anyway, business to me is an escape room that never ends. Yeah. So you're problem solving. The difference is I train, I eat, and then I'm still problem solving. So right now, my problem solve is, you've met Liam. How can I find another closer that can perform at his level? Yeah. Because if I solve that problem, we make $250,000 a month in this system, where I do 30 minutes of work a day. That's pretty good. Yeah. It's $3 million a year. That's cool. And then, we can scale that. But my big problem now is, how do I find a closer that can perform at that level? Yeah. And when I solve that problem, next problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So what do you, because obviously you've been in sales for a long time. So let's just take let's say a sales professional or a professional, he's in a corporate world or something right now, and he's stuck. You know what I mean? Whether he is stuck mentally, like mindset wise, like where he's at, he's not making enough money. What would you say to him from a development standpoint? What are the traits, the skills, like what does he need to do to get out here, like to get on the other side and like...
Yep. Yeah. So we take this from a closer or a business owner's perspective?
I would take it from a individual. Like, let's say someone that could come and work with you as a closer or a sales professional, that sort of thing. Like, as an individual, how would you coach him?
Yep. So, the first thing I would say, if I was back 21, 22 again, I would go to someone I would go to a team who are selling something that I believe in, and a CEO who I actually admire. Yeah. And I would go, I don't care what I need to do. I will work for your business, if it's an hour a day or 5 hours a day, for free until you believe I'm worth commission. Yeah. Because I would, honest to God, I would do that. I say this to Charlie every day, and he says the same every time we say this. I would take everything that I own and exchange it to be 21 again with my mindset. Yeah. Because if you could put me back there, I would have that money made back by 24, 25. Yeah. Knowing what I know now. Yeah. So I would do anything to go back to that age.
Everybody says that thing.
Bro, it's true. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what is it?
But then what is it then? Is it just to accumulate more, or is it just like the excitement of like you could have done things in a different way, or?
I would just have more time. Yeah. Like, imagine, because at this point I'd be worth maybe 100 mil. more maybe if I could go back, like, so, and then that money gives way more freedom and a different style of life, but also, as men, we want to succeed. So I would go back to that individual and go, I will work with you for free until you believe that I deserve commission. So serious question, or anyone watching this, if some young kid said that to you, are you going to give him a shot?
100.
Of course.
Exactly.
So then it's in his hands.
Yeah.
And in life, there are so many things that are out of our control.
Yeah.
The more things that we can put within our control, the better, even if it's tough. So I would go, okay, so if I'm like taking sales calls and I'm flunking, great, let's learn. And eventually, well, there's only one of two options. I either improve, or I go to another sales team and try and weasel my way in until I get found out there, and then I'm back to square one.
Yeah.
So at this point, even if it was like 1 or 2 calls a day, every day for free, until I'm up at a standard, and then I go, listen, I think I deserve a little bit of commission, don't you?
Yeah.
And then it's a sale.
Yeah.
Like, you got to sell them the idea that you're making money for them. And if you are, then great. If you're not, well, then there you go. And if I could do that as a sales professional again, I would come at it at a different mindset. So some of you guys will know, I was managing Jordan Belfort's sales team for most of last year, and a lot of other celebrity brands. Obviously, one of the biggest names in sales. And honestly, and if people are listening to this, I mean this with the most love, but I was shocked to see how many closers are out there who get sold on a fucking dream. I'll give you an example. There are people out there who are getting sold this idea from people that are selling sales coaching, not Jordan Belfort, other people. And they're doing their best, but they're selling the idea to the average person that they can become a closer and make $20K a month after a 6-week course. Bro, like, let me be really honest. There is a level that you will never get to, no matter how much training or how many reps you get, unless you have some form of natural panache. There's a natural ability. You can get really, really good, but there's a different echelon of closer that is natural.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff you can't teach.
Yeah.
The people who don't have that naturally need, in my opinion, need to close probably for 2 to 3 years from scratch to be good, to be really good.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And these people are being sold a dream that you're going to do this 6-week course, learn a few frameworks, you're going to be making $20K a month. Yeah. So here's what happens. I come along, give them, hey, anyone want to have an interview? Jordan Belfort's one of the best gigs you can have in sales. And they jump in, they get like punched in the face a few times, like by not closing. I'm going to do a different offer. And what they do is they bounce to a different offer, don't make sales. They bounce to a different offer, don't make sales. They bounce to a different offer, don't make sales. They run out of funds and have to go back into their 9 to 5, and they forget about closing altogether. Instead, my strongest advice to people is go, and almost all of them, honestly, this, like, I hate to say this, but almost all of them said, I don't want to be a setter. I want to be a closer. I'm like, okay. So a setter in most businesses will get a salary and some commission. Yeah. Closers normally commission only. Yeah. So you go commission only, you don't close. Yeah. You got to get money somewhere. Yeah. A small number of people said, I'm going to start at the bottom as a setter, give me a salary so I can stay alive and learn. A year or 2 later, they know this offer inside out. An example is, I have a setter now and he won't close. I'm like, bro, you're ready. He's like, no, I'm happy. I'm getting a good base. Getting a good base. I'm getting a little bit of commission and I'm growing. I'm working my way up. I'm enjoying. He's like 21, 22. He's our best setter. He's like a dialer. Yeah. He's loving life. And he knows that the second he says yes, he'll crush closing. Yeah. And I'm trying to get him up. Whereas most people are the other way around and they're going, I want to be a closer. I want to be a closer. And they just get it all wrong. I think, like, they just expect it's all, I think because we live in an era of like Uber, Deliveroo, like everything is there. They just don't realize that you need to put in the work. Yeah. Like, imagine I'm going to be Mr. Olympia, like, because I did, your 12-week course. Yeah. Like, it's just not realistic. It's the same thing. Yeah. And if you look at the amount of people right now who want to do sales from anywhere, it's competitive, you know? So what I would say to a lot of people is be willing to put in work no matter what it is.
Yeah. So besides for like the skills of sales in regards to that person, you said like they might jump in, then they jump out, they go back in again. That's a trait of like whatever, they can't focus. Like,
yeah.
So what are some key aspects for these things? Because I think the reason why I love, you know, we work with a lot of sales professionals is because it borderlines towards like entrepreneurship, but they're an individual.
Right.
Performance based. Yep. What do they need? What mindset do they need? You said like not everybody has it. So is it a drive and a hunger? Or what
I think every single person can sell. Not just some people will never get to like a certain level, no matter how much training they have. It's the same way. I'll never be able to run a sub 9.900 meters. If you take me back to childhood and I trained every day, my genetics probably would never get me to 9.9 seconds. You could get me sub 10, maybe 10.1 with all the training in the world and all of that. So I honestly believe that there's a potential that people can max out in everything.
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of people that don't have that, you'll know straight away if you meet someone, if they have that kind of flair, or they have that charisma, or they can just hold the tension in a room.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, that's okay, but you just need to work hard. And the biggest mistake is bouncing around from offer to offer, because if I'm selling your program for you, I know it inside out. That's so useful.
Yeah.
Now I go to Charlie's and I'm selling Charlie's offer. I'm like, okay, now I need to learn the offer now.
Yeah.
And you're just not making it easy for yourself. Instead of going, I'm going to go all in on this. Obviously, there's frameworks, there's practicing, there's reps. But if I believe, coming back to what I said before, if I believe in what you sell and I admire you as CEO, why would I go somewhere else?
Yeah.
The answer is, well, maybe I just need to get better, rather than, oh, it's the offer, oh, it's the CEO. Like, I'm just, because what they'll go, oh, this guy over here is like making 10K commission on this offer. Yeah, because he's been there for 3 years, or he's naturally really good, or he's just been selling, you know, online offers for a long time.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shiny object syndrome with closing, for sure.
For sure. What would you say is your natural, like, what is the thing, like your secret sauce thing? Because I've heard you say it before, it's like personally for me, I love sales because it's like, for me, it's just ultimate personal development.
Yep.
Like for me. And I've heard you say sales is applied human psychology.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. What is that for you?
So for me, I think it's going deep again and maybe going back to my childhood. From a very young age, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up, I would walk into a room and I would have to read whether this guy is drunk or not, whether this guy is going to be abusive today or not, whether this guy is going to hit my mom or not. What do I need to say to dampen down this flared up situation as a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old? And I think I just became, now, I don't know if that's genetic or there's an element of genetics, but there's definitely an environmental factor that my whole life I'm like, okay, so my biological dad's in the equation, drops me off. This guy's here, he's kicking off. It's like, I'm reading this situation and I'm trying to understand what's going on. Yeah. And maybe this isn't relevant for everyone. There's that. But there was also, I don't think my parents will mind, and they definitely won't be watching this, but if they were, to be honest, my parents were separated when I was 3. And I think something that has, obviously I did a PhD in cancer research, and the thing that caused me to be very inquisitive about the world, which you need to study at that level, is that I questioned everything. And I believe that came from, imagine you're a 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old child, and the 2 people you love most in the world tell you 2 separate versions of reality. Your mom tells you something about your dad, and your dad tells you something about your mum, but you're like, but I love you, mommy. Okay, I believe her. And then you go to your dad and you're like, but I love dad and I believe him. What that forced me to do, and I understand that people have different perspectives, and also people tell variations of the truth and they're emotional and all of that. And also, I'm not saying my parents did this, but they can manipulate the child's thoughts against the other person. From a very young age, I had to try and take everything that was said with a pinch of salt and try and make up my own mind. And what that does when you're speaking to a prospect or a human is you're hearing what they're saying, but you're still digging deeper. You're still trying to understand, is that really what's going on, or is there something deeper? Like, is that really the objection? And I think the whole way through my life, it caused me to be very inquisitive and very not take anything at face value, and always go a level deeper and always try and understand what is this person's emotion. So let's say my mom would say something about my dad, and I'm like, from a very young age, I'm like, is this the truth, or is mom just feeling a little like this about dad?
Yeah.
And I would say I took that into life. But I do think there's an element away from all of that. I think there's an element of like charisma and personality that some people have, that you have in abundance. Like that some people can, if you're a guy and you're listening to this and you're like, would I be a good closer? If you can walk into a room of women and hold your own and just be relative and just be able to chat, like that's probably a good sign. That's probably a good sign you're probably going to be a good closer, because it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of charisma, it's the same sort of charm. And even if you're closing men or women, it doesn't matter, but people are attracted to that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a certain energy with people that sell, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like, to be honest, like even if I look at myself, it's like, it's probably boiling down to insecurities around when you can communicate and when you can hold a conversation and when you can stay in a conversation. That for me is like ultimate power.
Yep.
Almost like.
Yep. I mean, I couldn't imagine taking a sales call in Danish. So like it's tough for, like, the fact that you can do that in other languages is really impressive. Actually, though. You know
it's actually weird. Yeah.
But I think because that you probably work harder on that and it causes you to be better naturally.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you're Danish, obviously, but I couldn't even imagine like being charming in another language. Yeah. Like it'd be tough.
Yeah.
I speak close to fluent French, but I could not be charming in French. Like, you know what I mean?
French, you know.
So I don't think I could be charming in French, but we'll see.
Yeah. So going into kind of like the nuts and the bolts around sales and these sort of things, I feel like a lot of, how long have you been teaching sales for now?
So I would say probably maybe half a decade, which isn't a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more. And the reason that came about was because Wade, who you met, I'm like, right, I need him to help me close. And I embarked on a mission, coming back to what we spoke about at the start. I wanted freedom. I didn't want necessarily money, I wanted freedom. And I knew that if I wanted freedom, that I needed to teach other people how to do this thing, which is my talk tomorrow is going to be all on that, which is how you can leverage your time. But that doesn't mean that people think that, I tick that box, now I'm a CEO and I don't have to take calls.
Yeah.
That's not really the case. It's just, okay, I have these skills down, but now you need to focus, like, okay, I can close. But now you need to do different skills. I need to manage a closer. I need to look after a human. I need to motivate them. I need to teach them. I need to dissect what's not working. I need to get inside their head. And that's just a different skill set.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, for example, most people watching this, if they're let's say a fitness business owner, they hire a VA, they're like, VA is not good. It's like, are you teaching them? No. Are you coaching them? Are you talking to them all the time? Are you like course correcting? And I think most people undervalue how important that is.
Yeah.
And I would put it this way: if you can find or grow or make a human in your team that sells an offer that you can run leads to cheaper than he sells them, you, my friend, have an ATM.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
You have a walking, talking, shitting, eating ATM.
Yeah.
And you got to look after that, like, right? Like that's that human. So I'm there going like, this is serious. I'm like, I wonder if he's sleeping. Like, is he okay? Yeah. Like, he's serious. I'm like, is he sleeping? Like, this is the goose that's laying the golden egg. Seriously though, and people think about hiring a closer as if, done. Like, this person's supposed to close, done, and they think it's over. It's like, no, it's only just beginning, my friend.
Yeah.
Like, you need to look after that thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's a goose. Yeah. Like, that's shitting out eggs. That's gold.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I see it. As a business owner now, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And okay, some geese are going to lay better eggs than others naturally, but you need to feed them, you need to look after them, you need to give them training.
Yeah.
But I promise you, like, most of the money most of the money that, let's say the net worth that I have now has been closed by other people within my team. At the start, it was me.
Yeah.
But the rest, the last maybe few million has been from my team making deals.
Yeah.
Not me.
That's a good feeling, yeah.
Right. But what's also great is I've been able to give them a life and a skill set that they will have for the rest of their lives, and money that they never thought they would make. Some of my closers making 10K commission a month. It's like, wow, like living in crazy parts of the world. I'm like, this is mad.
And they have no other stress than that. They're right. Close, yeah.
Yeah, just close.
Yeah.
And just and finding ways that you can incentivize closers to stay in that offer is the hardest part.
Yeah.
And there's loads of different ways you can do that. But
so if you're boiling down to, like, let's say you're in a conversation right now, you're in a sales conversation right now, you're auditing calls.
Call.
Yeah, a sales call. Okay. Yeah, you're in a sales call right now. What do you see? Like, what is kind of like your framework to get a customer, a new person that don't know you, from here to a close? And also, where do you see is the common mistakes happening for people?
I can answer that one straight away.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake, the biggest reason I think that people aren't selling is that when you review the call, does it look like a sales call, or does it look like someone who's trying to help another person? Because if you watch it as a neutral and you go, this is a sales call, this is a pitch, he's going through the pitch deck. No, the alternative is you're coaching that person on how their future could be. And you can feel it, you can smell it, you can see it, you can see the tonality. And when you watch, and that's why I recommend people review their own calls.
Yeah.
Are you going through the motions, or are you really like coaching that person through? Like, hey, Simon, this is what we do. We go onto LinkedIn, this is how we help people. You've got this, you've got this, you've got this. It's great. Versus, Simon, bro, I promise you, you're going to crush it with this. Honestly, like, we've done this. These people have done that. I'm really excited for you, like, whether it's with us or with someone else. Please, if nothing else happens after this call, just do this.
Get into
now,
it,
obviously, if you did it with us, it would be easier, it would be quicker, we can help you. But even if you don't join us, please focus on these things. Like, you can see the difference there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest mistake, that people aren't trying to build an emotional relationship with the person and really care.
Yeah.
And from a framework standpoint, simple framework would be, you need to make them problem aware, solution aware, and then product aware. Problem, solution, product. And most people try and sell the product without confirming that they agree with the solution diagnosis, or have done enough work to identify the problem. Because, you sell me like a bolt for a screw, for a hole that I don't have. It's like, I'm not going to buy it. Like, you need to make sure that this is the problem. Do you both agree? Because you may think that, let's say you come to me with your health and fitness and you say, hey, my problem is I'm not sleeping. If I think the problem is your nutrition, then there's no point us going any further unless we both have the conversation and agree that the problem is the same. Or it could be both, but we agree on both. It's the nutrition because of the sleep, or vice versa. Then you move to the solution. Okay, so what would be the solution to that problem? Then you both need to agree. You could go, I think it's carnivore. And I could go, I think it's keto. Someone else could go, I think it's paleo. Unless you agree on the solution, the product's no use. And I think it's just going through that framework. There's loads more, obviously, but simple framework. But I would say the biggest mistake is that you review the call and you don't feel like that person really cares about the human. About the human. Like, to the point where if someone gets off a call, one of my closers in this order, I go, if they say didn't close, no good, I'm going to go, what did you pitch them? What price? Then I'll go, why do you think it didn't close? Like, what was the objection? So what was it and at what price? Number one. Number two, Why do you think they didn't close? The next question is, were they married? Serious.
Yeah.
Were they married?
Yeah. I don't know.
Did they have kids?
Yeah.
And if they don't know the answers to those questions, I'm done.
Right.
Because if you're trying to, let's say, help a guy get in the best shape of his life and you haven't even asked him, why would a guy want to get in the best shape of his life? Mm. And if he doesn't have a wife and he doesn't have kids, well, you need to know that because one day he will.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
And that's building a decent, intimate relationship with the prospect.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to try and convince someone you're going to change their lives unless they feel like you give a shit about their lives.
Yeah. How do you dig into more about the emotional aspect, the why,
without getting abrasive?
Yeah. Or you know.
Yep.
With people that are more analytical, or let's say you're in your mind, you're like, yeah, I understand it's not deeper than that. Like, is that just not a good fit, or how do you dig more in? So you're like, okay, fuck, I can close this guy.
Yep. So there will be people who are very dismissive, like it's nothing to do with that. Like,
it's fine.
My family's not, relevant. It's this. But for people, let's talk about for the people that you can do that with. If you come to me with a serious problem, let's say it's a serious health problem, or an example, let's say you're a guy and you come to me, erectile dysfunction. Mm. It's not going to be strange for me to ask you when the last time you had sex was. Right? Mm. Whereas if you're like, hey, my tooth's sore, and I go, when was the last time you had sex? You're going to be like, what? So you need to, the difference there is the more intimate I can bring our conversation, the more able I am to ask more intimate questions. Yeah. So I need to deserve the right to ask that question. Mm. I need to build a relationship with you. So if we were best friends for 10 years and I go, bro, when was the last time you got your bits checked? You're going to go, maybe a few weeks ago. Whereas if you were just someone I didn't know, you'd be like, that's weird. Yeah. Because I've already earned the ability to ask those questions. Yeah. And that comes from me sharing about me also. Like this. Hey, I completely understand. You know what? When I was going through that period too, this happened, and I was losing some weight, and I used to live in Oklahoma, and this happened and this happened. You're buying into my story now. Yeah. I'm bringing you into my world, and we're building an actual relationship as a human, not as a closer and not as a prospect, as two humans trying to navigate their way through life. Yeah. And that affords you the ability to ask those questions. If someone's being really dismissive and they're not letting you in, there's two things that you do. You either, there's probably three. You either continue to try and go until you get a pushback. You try and skirt around it and do a logical close, which isn't always easy. Or you do what I would do and go, Simon, tell me if I got this wrong, but I'm really trying to get an understanding, and I'm trying to dig a little deeper, but it seems like there's a little bit of resistance. I don't mean to be inappropriate. I'm just trying to do my job. And that's addressing the elephant in the room. Yeah. Because at that point, if I address the elephant in the room, you either now have to let me in, or it's fucking awkward, or you tell me no, and I know that's off limits. Yeah. But at that point, I've put you in a position where you kind of have to force the hand. And then if you go, yeah, that's just not really that's cool. But if you go, yeah, okay, and then it's really difficult for you not to let me push then. Yeah. Because now you feel awkward if you don't. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So addressing the elephant in the room, and that comes down to having an honest conversation. And most people in life are not having an honest conversation. Yeah. Most people are projecting their thoughts so that these people will think they're great. I try my best when I am doing something like this to tell what I think is the truth. Yeah. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Yeah. But I think in most conversations, people are too worried about the outcome of what they're saying rather than saying the truth and letting the outcome be the outcome. Yeah. On sales calls, I think that's important.
Do you I feel a little bit like that on sales calls, about I just get in the zone, and it's almost like you get into, I don't know, I feel like you can say anything on a call. Almost.
You can.
You know what I mean?
But you have a different level of charisma, and your guests or people watching will know that you have the ability. You're a likable guy, and you just say it as it is. And I think I don't know if you can teach that to everyone. Yeah. I don't know if you can teach that to everyone.
What do you think it is? Because you got it definitely for sure as well. It's like I think because you know what's going to happen. Like you've been in it so much, you know
that helps. Yeah, that helps. But also, this maybe comes back to what you said at the start. Is like I'm very aware of all of the things I'm bad at, and I'm very aware of all of the things I'm good at, and I'm very aware of where I'm at, like internally. I know the things I want to improve. There's nothing that you can ask me here about anything in my life, no matter how invasive, that I wouldn't want to share, because I feel like I'm in a good place. Yeah. And I think when you do that, you come to the world and you shine. Yeah. Like you shine in a way that's like very genuine and authentic. It wasn't always like that, and I think maybe growing up, like when I moved to London, I was on the cover of magazines, I was on the cover of like a side of London buses, I was like, topless doing this, and I was trying to get external validation to fill an internal void. Yeah. And I realized that it was empty as fuck. It was so empty, until I realized that the best thing that I can do if I feel like I've got an internal void is give value to the world. And that can be a program, it can be a podcast for free, it can be helping my friend. When I feel like I'm giving genuine value, when I get on a sales call, honestly, and I'm really not just saying this because it sounds good, my goal is not to close. And I honestly don't think about closing. I just know that if I speak the fucking truth to this person, I have the natural ability to communicate the truth. And if I don't think it's the right thing, then there's plenty of people who've been on calls with our team or me in the past, and I'm like, bro, like, you can give me your money if you like, but that's not where you should go. Yeah. I'd love to say yes, but it isn't. Yeah. And it's so refreshing to be like that. Yeah. And it gives you a different level of confidence, because I know now, because you're a closer, right? Getting on the call, if you're watching this, you're a closer. There's only one thing you're thinking before you get on that call. Is it going to close? That's the wrong mindset. Go, I have an ability to speak to another human being and try and solve their problem. And hopefully that problem can be solved by our program. Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. But if it doesn't, that's fine. Yeah. But if it does, we're good. Yeah. I'm going to do my best to communicate why he should do it.
So let's say you have that guy on the call right now, and you articulated everything correctly, and you're coming to the end, and you go through in your mind that you've done everything after the book. You have great rapport, lots of pain, lots of understanding. Like, I really want this. Everything is like, you're like there. And then
he says no.
And then there's a no.
Okay, sure.
And for whatever reason, he can beat around the bush, you know what I mean? Like, he can be like, I need to talk to Rise, I need to think about it. The financial investment is quite high. Like, it's in that round. Yep. Like, yeah, you almost know.
So there's loads of frameworks that you can go through that we won't have time to go through today.
Sure, yeah.
But the perspective I would give you is this. Yeah. You're on the edge of a cliff. Yeah. And you're looking down, and you're in Bali, and you're jumping off into like this lagoon. Yeah. And the guy's just shitting himself. Yeah. And you need to go, bro, you really need, it's the best jump I've ever done. Yeah. You really need to do that. Yeah. The best thing you can do in that moment is imagine that you're not against him, trying to break him. You're beside him, trying to encourage him, and you're trying to figure out why he won't. Yeah. And if there's a reason why he won't that you agree with, you don't let him jump. If there's a reason you don't agree with, why would you let him jump? If you're like, no, that makes sense. Yeah. But it's rare that that's the case. Yeah. And if that's not the case, then your goal is to do your best to ethically encourage that person to take the leap, because that's a fucking good dive. Yeah. And see yourself, like, even in the tonalities, like, I really want you to do this. What, like, I'm almost on the same side as you. Like, what's the issue? Like, tell me, man. Like, it's so good down there. Yeah. Like, it's great. Yeah. Honestly, I know it's scared now. How many times have you jumped? Yeah. Never. Yeah. I see people jump every day. Yeah. And I see when they come back up and they're like, I want to do that again. So you need to frame it differently and make it seem like, because the biggest problem, I would say one of the biggest emotional barriers for closers is rejection. And as soon as they get hit with an objection, they're tensing up, like they're ready for a punch. They're like, emotionally, they're tensed. Yeah. And all that happens then is you just get worse and worse and worse and worse, rather than going, that's actually such a good reason why you shouldn't do it. Yeah. Never thought of that. Yeah. And then let's talk about it. Yeah. Let's discuss. Or, hey, there may be a good few reasons why you shouldn't work with us. Do you mind if we spend a few minutes going through those? Yeah. I think there's a few. I mean, I can think of maybe one or two, and maybe you have a few. Would it be a good idea for us to talk through those? You're like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, cool, let's go. Yeah. Let's talk. Let's just talk. Yeah. And if you say something that I agree with, I'm like, that's a very good point. Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah. But there's 20 reasons why you should. Yeah. Can we talk around those too? Yeah. Like, yeah, okay. Right? Yeah. I'm on your team. Yeah. And even my tonality changes. Mm. And very often taking someone to the point where they're like, where you lead them. Mm. They're like, oh, really? Okay. Yeah. They're like, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. So I go, well, this is one reason why you wouldn't want to work with us. Yeah. This is another. Do you think they're legitimate reasons? Yeah. They go, not really. This is what I was thinking. And oh, okay. And then you discuss it. Yeah. Just like two humans. Yeah.
Curiosity, like
with the same goal. Yeah. And the same goal is to lead the prospect to their future. Yeah. Sometimes it's with you and sometimes it's not with you. Yeah. That's why having a good offer helps. Yeah. And if the offer is not good enough, improve the offer. Yeah. It's okay. Improve the offer.
Love that. Mm-hmm. Chris, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, bro.
I appreciate your time very much. What is the goal for 2024? And what are you shooting for? I remember you said, like, obviously the building the business part right now, the relationship aspect will come from that. Yep. Ish, yeah.
So,
what are you focusing on? Yeah.
So, business-wise, my goal is to double what the business is bringing in. Yeah. And this is the hard part. Without me being the manager on the sideline, throwing my boots on and getting in the ring. Yeah. My goal is to have the patience and the courage, because it is courage, to back my team and my ability to create a team that doesn't need me. Yeah. And if we do that, we double where we're at, and that's a very good place for this year. From, let's say, everything that will come from that will be to continue to probably live 2024 as a year full of experiences where I have the most freedom. I've spent most of my life hustling to get to a point. And I feel like now my focus is work smarter, work more efficiently. And I'm really learning that I'm setting a lot of boundaries. And one example would be like an hour or two every day, hence the tan. I try and sit out in the sun with a pen and paper only. So I'll try to go to a beach club most days, or else I'll sit in, on my balcony in my apartment. And normally people go, what, beach club? I'd love to live a beach club life. And it sounds like it's a day off, but I need to reframe and realize that if I come up with if I go to a beach club for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, and come up with one idea, that could change the landscape of our business. And that's the perspective I need to have. Yeah. And it's building the framework that allows the business to run without me being on a laptop in Slack, on calls, on Zoom. Yeah. And that's the ignorance that I had, is that I'm not there yet. The truth is I just didn't have the skills required. Skills like get better at hiring, better at managing, better at recruiting. And I'm very open with some of my shortcomings. One is when I stepped in to manage Jordan Belfort's sales team, their words, not mine, I was one of the best coaches they had. Admittedly, I probably could have been a better manager at managing numbers, because my background's like teaching and sales. I needed to improve, and I did, but I still need to improve managing and motivating a team on the nitty gritty, like have you done your dispositions? Have you done this? Yeah. The technical stuff. Yeah. And if I want to grow a multi-7-figure and eventually an 8-figure business, they're skills I need to learn. Yeah. So instead of me thinking I graduated, it's just, no, I wasn't good enough at those things yet. Yeah. And I think wherever anyone is listening to this, it's where do I need to go? There's only one thing stopping you from getting where you want to go, and it's generally learning the skills to take you to that next step.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
Once you've got a good strategy in place, it's just learning skills.
Yeah.
And I just needed to learn different skills.
Yeah.
There's only so much I could. If I was twice as good on a sales call, that doesn't matter if I'm not taking the calls.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if I can recruit better people,
yeah.
One thing that Alex Hormozi wrote in his $100 million offer leads book is, put it this way, is I used to sell clients. Now I sell employees on the idea of getting us clients.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing a way higher leverage skill.
Yeah.
So instead of selling 5 clients, we could make, 100K. I sell 5 employees who each make us 100K. It's just leverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
When did that when did you have that realization?
Probably reading his book. I always knew that that's what I needed to focus on.
Yeah.
But reading his book really made me realize that what I was doing for Jordan Belfort, the recruiting, the hiring, I'm like, this is the skill. And to be honest with you, I didn't go in there for the money.
Yeah.
I was making way more money in my own business.
Yeah.
I went in there to learn.
Experience, yeah.
And the experience and to learn and craft those skills that I knew I needed in my own.
Yeah.
Comes back to the closer day one. If a closer needs to improve, get stuck in and go, I'll do it for free if I need. I would have done all the stuff I did for Belfort for free if I needed.
Yeah.
Just to learn those skills.
Yeah.
And I've already made maybe $7-8 million in business. And I decide to work in a team for next to nothing because of what I'll learn.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to do that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Chris, if people want to know more about you and learn from you,
sure.
Where do they find you?
Well, I've got a podcast also. So you can go to fitnesscoachfreedompodcast.com.
Yeah.
I'll maybe send you a link. That podcast is more about sales and LinkedIn and high ticket closing. They can find me on Instagram at Spearman Chris.
Yeah.
And if they want to learn more about LinkedIn or sales, they can go to apolloinnercircle.com.
Bang. My friend.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thank you.